Thursday night felt like a fever dream from 2010. I mean, we had Aaron Rodgers, Joe Flacco, two 40-year-olds trading haymakers under the lights in what was called the Unk Bowl. And somehow it was awesome. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't fast, but it was pure football, and we saw two legends that refused to fade quietly. And then Sunday hit. Down 19 to nothing in the fourth quarter, we watched an NFL record. The Denver Broncos scored 33 points in 15 minutes, and they came back to win that game. It made no sense, and that's why it was beautiful. This kind of chaos always reminds you why we love this game. But the chaos can't hide dysfunction. The Miami Dolphins, they lost 31-6 to the Cleveland freaking Browns, and now they're 1-6. And I've seen enough. Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa, Chris Greer, all of them need to be fired immediately. There's no excuses, no optimism, no we'll figure it out. They've wasted the talent and time and whatever credibility this franchise has left. And so, I mean, week 7 was wild, but underneath all the chaos, the truth is simple. There are some teams fighting back, there's some teams fade away, and some need to be torn down to the studs. Welcome to the week 7 report from the Sideline Journal and the biggest takeaways that happened in this last week of football. And so, I mean, this might be the most wide open NFL season we've ever seen in a decade. There isn't a single team that feels inevitable. There's no empire, there's no giant, there's no team that everyone's just chasing. I mean, right now there are 5 different NFC squads that sit at 5-2, and each one's flawed and each one's dangerous. I mean, over in the AFC, the Chiefs are 4-3, and if the playoffs started today, they wouldn't even be in it. Meanwhile, the 6-1 Colts, led by Indiana Jones, hold the best record in football. I mean, seriously, the 6-1 Colts, led by Indiana Jones. And so, when the league's most stable powers are wobbling and the supposed bottom feeders are climbing, you realize something. Parity isn't just a slogan this year, it's reality. Every week feels like a reset button. And I mean, the MVP race right now, it's not the normal people. It's not Mahomes, it's not Allen, it's not Lamar. For me, it's Dak Prescott, it's Baker Mayfield, and it's Matthew Stafford. And if that doesn't tell you how strange this season is, nothing will. And so what we're watching right now on a week-to-week basis is a league without gravity, because it's not people pulling them down towards them. It's not the guys rising to the top and the terrible teams pulling people down. The field is level. Everybody is either good or bad. We don't know yet. And that makes it more dangerous than ever. Because when everyone can convince themselves they're a contender, the trade deadline is going to turn into a battlefield. We're going to see GMs gamble. They're going to panic. They're going to chase that glory for the Super Bowl. Because for the first time in years, it feels like 8, 9, 10 teams can win the Super Bowl. So I think this next month we're going to see what's going to separate the builders from the buyers and the pretenders from the problems. I think the board is wide open, and I think the war for January is about to start. And so if this really is the most wide open season we've seen in years, then I think every week becomes a referendum. Every matchup between contenders isn't just a game. We're going to see who's real. And I think there were 2 matchups this week that were very important for both the AFC and the NFC. And we're going to take a look at each of those. But starting with the NFC game, the biggest one happened. Y'all are going to see this on Tuesday, so it was last night with the Buccaneers in Detroit. I mean, the Bucs are rolling in at 5-1. Baker's playing like an MVP candidate. The Lions sit at 4-2, coming off an emotional loss to the Chiefs. They are both built with a lived in toughness, discipline, and swagger with their football teams. The Lions are banged up in the secondary, and you think the Bake Show's going to cook. But the game ended with Detroit actually winning to 24 to Tampa Bay to 9. And I mean, for the Buccaneers, you come out of that game thinking like you left a lot of meat on the bone. They went 3 of 16 on third downs. They were 27 of 52 passing completions for Baker Mayfield. His average air yard per target wasn't over 7 yards. And unfortunately, Mike Evans went down with another injury. And I mean, watching that game, the Buccaneers have to figure out a run game that is going to marry with the pass game. It's very obvious when they're in gun, they're taking a drop back pass and they're going to try to hit it deep, or they're going to have underneath crossers. No one runs mesh at a higher percentage than the Buccaneers do. That's why Baker can throw the football 52 times and only have 3.6 yards. It is too many times that when they are under center, they do not run a play action set out of it, or they allow Baker to run a quick 3-step drop out of it. And that's something that really needs to improve quickly if they're going to keep being what we think they are, is contenders contenders in this league. Transitioning to talk about the Lions, what a statement win for Dan Campbell and the Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs had close to 200 scrimmage yards, and it was an arrival party for Kelvin Shepherd, the DC for the Lions. He went straight up man for most of the night and looked at the Buccaneers wide receiver core without Mike Evans and a bang up Emeka Egbuka and said, we're going to play man. I'm going to have a QB spy on Baker, and we're not going to let him scramble and make magic happen. And that front with Liam McNeil and Aiden Hutchinson and DJ Reader clogging the middle as well, there's not close to a better front in football. You throw in Derek Barnes and Jack Campbell as linebackers that are harassing Baker all night to let him scramble, and you can see how this got there really quickly. So, I mean, it's an unfortunate loss for the Buccaneers, but I do think both these teams are going to bounce back. We're going to see them both in January, but this is going to have major playoff implications going forward as we get to January and get closer. It's not often you see games in Week 7 between two playoff favorites like this, but it was a fun one to watch. And go over to the AFC, taking a look at, the Chargers versus the Colts. Going into that game, I had the bold prediction. I thought the Chargers were going to pull it out. I'm a big believer in Jesse Minter's defensive scheme and Justin Herbert as a quarterback and John Harbaugh as a head coach. But the Colts are continuously proving me wrong. Going into the season, I said that Daniel Jones would have a resurgent Sam Darnold type season and the Vikings would win a lot of regular season games, but the important games they would falter in. And I'm starting to maybe think that there's something more going on with this team in this offense and that Daniel Jones might truthfully be a franchise quarterback. As Shane Steichen's proven when he can get confident quarterback play in this league, he can go very far. I mean, he cut his chops making Jalen Hurts look like a top 5 quarterback. He came to the Colts. He made Gardner Minshew and Joe Flacco both look like competent starters, and it just shows how bad Anthony Richardson's been and how great this offense can be. I mean, when the run game is humming, Jonathan Taylor is feasting, Daniel Jones is spreading the ball to Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Tyler Warren. This is a very potent offense that is going to have legs in the playoffs. And you kind of go look over at the Chargers, and I hate the statement that Justin Herbert's just the what-if quarterback, because I truthfully believe that he is a, without a doubt, surefire top 10 quarterback. But he's eerily having a similar start to his career as the last good quarterback for the Chargers, Phillip Rivers. He has a lot of good stats. He keeps them in games, but he is a little turnover heavy because he starts pressing and feeling like he's got to pull his team into the win, and he makes some tight window throws that he probably shouldn't make. And the reason he's having to do that is, unfortunately, this offensive line is crumbling around him, and the team is. And I mean, the Chargers, it sucks. The NFL is not for long. They were 3-0 with 3 division wins, and now they're sitting at 4-3. But the bright side is because of those division wins, if the playoffs started today, they would be in and the Chiefs would be out. So there's still time for the Chargers to circle the wagons, but this is another important game to look at for AFC playoff implications because it makes the Colts the unquestioned number 1 seed, and it's going to make all of those remaining AFC West divisional games between the now 5-2 Broncos and the 4-3 Chiefs and the 4-3 Chargers that much more important. And what allows these heavyweight teams to have these records like this is if this is a league that has a lot of parity right now, of a lot of teams that it can be any of their years, that also means there's some really bad football teams that's allowing that to happen. And there might not be a worse football team right now than some of the teams in the AFC. If you go look at the 1-6 Dolphins, I mean, you have Mike McDaniel, a head football coach that won 11-6 in his first season there. You have a $53 million franchise quarterback, top 5 overall pick in Tua Tagovailoa. You have a GM in Chris Grier who's been there since 2016. There is absolutely no reason with the money invested, with the time spent there, that they should be 1-6. But they are, and it's due to franchise mismanagement. Unfortunately, Tua is just not a franchise quarterback. He never should have been drafted at the position that he was in. He's made Brian Flores completely vindicated in what he wanted and tried to build there. And Mike McDaniel fit a offensive scheme that only Tua could run if Tua can play well. And unfortunately, he can't throw with timing anymore because of his concussions and injuries. He doesn't have any feel for the pocket whatsoever. Arm strength was never his strength, and now he's trying to push the ball in windows that he can't fit because he's not playing with timing, with rhythm, with accuracy, and they're getting down so quickly they can't run the football with Devon Achane in the scheme, the wide zone running scheme that Mike McDaniel majors in. And so ultimately, when you build a team around flashy toys and speed and not through the trenches, that's what you get with the Dolphins. And it's a classic case of franchise mismanagement, and Mike McDaniel's going to catch on somewhere as an OC. He's a very talented play caller. But the Dolphins, they need a clean house yesterday. Chris Grier should never be employed in the NFL again. I have not seen worse cap roster decision making in a very long time in this league of watching it and being a coach in the profession than what I watched happen with the Dolphins under Chris Grier's watch. And so kind of going forward into week 8, what are some teams or storylines that you might want to be watching? And my eyes turn towards the Texans that just lost on Monday Night Football 27-19. They're now 2-4. They've got a brutal schedule coming up. CJ Stroud looks all out of sorts. Nico Collins is coming off a concussion. The pass and rush block win rate for the Texans might be the worst in football. And that makes even though a shaky Jags team that's 4-3, you start to feel really good about their playoff chances, and you also start to realize that the Colts are probably going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. And you kind of go over look at the NFC now, and you start to see a playoff picture that takes shape of the Rams, the 49ers, the Buccaneers, and the Lions, and the Eagles all being 5-2. And who's sitting at the top? Well, the 4-1-1 Packers. And I mean, my gosh, still, ties should not exist in this league. But you see a logjam there of a lot of 5-2 teams. And it's going to have to sort itself out to where the NFC is going to be a lot more competitive as opposed to the AFC of who's going to have a chance for that number 1 seed, because they're all playing each other. They're all in very tough divisions, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out there. Unfortunately, I do think that means for teams like the Commanders and the Vikings, who are both 3-4, 3-3. They had a very much overachieving success last year, and they're starting to regress a little bit this year. You start to see the path for how they're going to miss the playoffs. And, historically, over half, I think it's like 65% of playoff teams for the previous year don't make the playoffs the next year. And I can go ahead and say that it's most likely for both those fans that it's going to be a very tough uphill battle. So that's your Week 7 recap, and kind of looking ahead. Coming up this week, we're going to release the next episode of the War Room podcast. You should see that around Wednesday at around 11 a.m. And then later this week, we're going to have the Buccaneers watchdog, Jagger Jackson, come on and talk a little bit about Buccaneers football, how they can overcome some of these injuries, what's going on with Baker Mayfield, the MVP race. And we're also going to have a standalone segment as well with the Seattle Seahawks franchise watchdog, Daniel Rice, and talk about the rise of Sam Darnold and how the Seahawks have the best defense in football, and the Legion of Boom has officially returned. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you consider subscribing, it really helped the channel out. We're literally 2 subs away from 300 subs, and it would mean the world to us. Anyways, we'll see you on the War Room here in a little bit. Peace out.